Hey guys, Mozambique here. Have you guys ever heard of the term Main DPS or Support DPS while watching Genshin YouTube videos? I think a lot of people just assume what a Main DPS and Support DPS is without actually knowing what they are. In this video, I'm gonna tell you guys what is the meaning of a Main DPS and Support DPS in Genshin Impact, along with some in-game examples. Knowing if a unit is a Main DPS or Support DPS is super important when building team compositions and lets you know which artifact sets are right for them. Without further ado, let's begin. So, what is a Main DPS? A Main DPS is a character that deals the most damage while being on the field. In other words, this character requires a lot of uptime to deal the most damage. Usually, this source of damage comes from auto-attacking or charge attacks, even plunging attacks, and some characters even have special elemental skills that allow them to be main DPSs. So let's talk about some examples of main DPS characters in Genshin. Right now, I have Eula, Ganyu, Xiao, and Hu Tao on my team, and all of these characters are built to be main DPSs. And I will try my best to explain why. Let's start off with Eula. The reason why Eula is a main DPS is because whenever you activate her elemental burst, you gain a stack for every time you hit an enemy. So the more stacks you get, the more damage you will deal with a burst. Pretty simple. This forces her to be on the field, and that's why she's a main DPS. As for Ganyu, the reason why Ganyu is a main DPS is because her charge attack multipliers are insane. Right? And you have to be on the field to deal her charge attacks. As for Xiao, Xiao is very unique in the sense that he becomes a main DPS after you activate his elemental burst, which makes his main source of damage his plunge attacks. Right? This is his main source of damage. And what's more is that if you try to switch characters while Xiao is in his elemental burst form, he actually loses his elemental burst. Right? Which makes him a very selfish DPS, and you have to play him on the field most of the time. Hu Tao is similar to Xiao. The only difference is that she activates her form with her elemental skill, right? She deals pyro damage and she deals immense damage with her charge attacks. And exactly like Xiao, whenever you switch out to another character, she loses her elemental skill form and you have to wait for her cooldown. Hopefully you guys can see the recurring trend here. A main DPS is a character that has to be on the field to deal the most amount of damage. Now, let's talk about Support DPS. A Support DPS is a character that does not require a lot of uptime on the field to deal damage, provide utility, and or healing to the team. Utility in Genshin refers to providing a shield, an attack buff to the whole team, or even grouping up mobs together. Usually a Support DPS has at least one of their abilities persist even when they are not on the field. These are the characters that you would use for a few seconds and then switch back out to a different character. Support DPS are usually the characters that inflict a certain element to the enemy so that your main DPS can provide elemental reactions that deal the most amounts of damage. A good example of this is using Xingqiu's elemental burst to inflict hydro on the enemy, and then you can use a pyro main DPS like Diluc or Hu Tao to inflict vaporize. Cool. Now I have a team full of support DPSs, and I will try to explain why these characters are support DPSs. Let's start off with Fischl. Fischl's pretty easy to understand. You summon her elemental skill, it brings out Oz in the field, he deals consistent damage, and Oz stays on the field even when you switch out to a different character. As for Zhongli, when you hold his elemental skill, he provides a shield for his team and summons this stone pillar. This stone pillar resonates with other geostructures and provides consistent damage. Now, Venti is a character that provides immense utility for your team. If you use his elemental burst, he groups up all small mobs into one place, and again, this stays on the field even when you switch out to another character. Jean has a very strong elemental skill that has a crazy short cooldown of 6 seconds, and her elemental burst heals and provides elemental debuffs for the team. One thing I do want to mention is that there are characters that can be both a support DPS and or main DPS depending on how you build them. One example of that is Ganyu. If you look at Ganyu's elemental skill and elemental burst, both of them persist even when you switch out to another character. This makes Ganyu a viable support, Yes, I do agree Ganyu can be a support. However, I would argue that her main potential lies in her charge attacks. But technically, you still can build Ganyu as a support. Same thing with Fischl. Fischl can actually be built as a main DPS. A lot of people actually do build Machine Gun Fischl, which is a physical build you do with Fischl. And I think she would do really well with a 2-piece Bloodstain, 2-piece Pale Flame combo along with Rust or even Amos Bow. Rosaria is a very, very flexible character that can literally be a support DPS, a main DPS, literally anything based on how you want to build her. I won't go into too much details about Rosaria, but let's just say she is one of those characters where you really can build anything with her and it works. So one thing I want to show you guys is that on my stream, I actually built my Chi-Chi to be physical for the content at twitch.tv/Mozambique, by the way. Make sure to follow. So my Chi-Chi actually does physical damage. I maxed out her auto attack talent to level 10. Don't ask me why. And she actually does pretty decent damage. And this goes against her kit, right? Like, Chi-Chi is actually mostly a support character. But for the memes, for the content, I decided to try to build physical Chi-Chi with 2-piece Bloodstain, 2-piece Pale Flame. And it does work. She's not the best physical DPS in the world, but it does work. So what I'm trying to say is, you can do a lot of weird builds in Genshin. And it's not always the case that a character is hardly a main DPS or hardly a support DPS. You know, you can experiment with different builds. And I think that's what makes the game really fun. So that's about it. I hope you guys know the difference between a main DPS and a support DPS now. And I hope you guys use this knowledge to determine whether a new character is a support or main DPS. By the way, 1.6 looks awesome. Can't wait for Kazuha. I can't really tell if Kazuha is going to be a main DPS or support DPS based on the trailer, but we'll have to wait and see. By the way, I stream on Twitch every single day on twitch.tv/Mozambique. Come and hang out. We like to have a good time, meme around in chat. And thank you so much for watching. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.